The attack in the boy's rage, the night sky above the cargo ship. Starlight ember glittered like an endless ocean of diamonds. Inside the ship, humans slept peacefully, thinking they had escaped the war raging in the outer colonies. Among them was a 17-year-old boy named Eli Grant, who sat beside his little sister Lila, watching the stars through the small viewport. He smiled when Lila pointed at a cluster of blue stars and whispered, "Do you think aliens live there?" Eli laughed softly and said, "Maybe, but not the bad kind." He didn't know that the bad kind was already coming, closer than anyone could imagine. Without warning, the ship trembled. Red alarms flashed through the corridors, and the captain's voice screamed over the intercom, "Pirates! We are under attack." The sound of laser fire echoed outside as bright streaks of plasma tore through the void. Eli grabbed Lila's hand and ran, his heart pounding like thunder, through a window. He saw black and red ships closing in, each marked with the skull emblem of Vorak Dren, the most feared alien pirate in the galaxy. The crew tried to fight back, but the pirates' weapons were too powerful. One explosion rocked the entire deck, throwing Eli and Lila to the ground. When the smoke cleared, a large section of the hull was gone. The cold breath of space hissed through the cracks, sucking debris into the void. Eli pushed Lila into an escape pod, shouting, "Going, stay here. I'll help the others." But before he could close the hatch, the pod was torn away by a violent blast. Spinning into the darkness, Eli screamed her name, but his voice vanished in the roar of destruction. He ran through the burning corridors, coughing from the smoke. Bodies of crew members floated weightless in zero gravity, their eyes open and lifeless, through the shattered control bridge. Eli saw him, Vorak Dren, the alien pirate lord, standing tall with armor made from human ship parts. His skin was gray and scarred, his eyes burning like molten iron. Beside him, his soldiers dragged human survivors and loaded them into cages. Vorak spoke in a voice that rumbled like a storm. "Take them alive. They'll fetch a good price." Eli's blood boiled. He wanted to attack, but he was just a boy, weak and unarmed. He hid behind a broken console, watching helplessly as Vorak's clawed hand seized the ship's captain and crushed him effortlessly. Then Vorak turned his head, as if sensing Eli's presence. For a moment, their eyes met, the cruel alien and the terrified boy, and in that moment something ignited inside Eli, a fire he had never felt before. The pirates planted charges and retreated to their ship. Eli tried to reach the escape pods, but they were all gone. The ship began to break apart as explosions ripped through every deck. He found a damaged emergency pod half buried under debris. As he climbed in, a final explosion sent the Starlight Ember into oblivion. The pod was thrown into space, spinning wildly, sparks flying across its control panels. Eli lost consciousness as the cold void swallowed him. When he woke, silence surrounded him. His pod floated among the wreckage of what once was a ship full of families and dreams. The oxygen level was dropping fast, he whispered weakly. "Lila, I'll find you. I promise." The stars above him shimmered, but none answered his cry. Tears floated in the zero gravity like tiny pearls of sorrow. He searched the nearby debris, finding the broken toy Lila had been holding, a small music box shaped like a moon. When he pressed it, the soft tune began to play, filling the pod with a haunting melody. That melody became his vow. Eli clenched his fists. His eyes hard with rage, he whispered, "I'll make him pay. I'll make them all pay." The pod's systems flickered and died. Leaving him alone in the darkness, minutes turned into hours. Hours into days, Eli's body grew weak, but his will did not break. He recorded a message into the pod's beacon. "If anyone hears this, my name is Eli Grant. My family was taken by the pirate Vorak Dren. I will not rest until I bring him down." Then he pressed the emergency distress button, sending a signal far into the black. He stared out the viewport, watching the stars drift slowly past. Each light reminded him of home, of his sister's laughter, of everything he had lost. And just as his eyes began to close, a strange blue light appeared in the distance. It grew larger and brighter until it filled the pod. Eli thought it was the end, but the light stopped, hovering outside. Through the cracked glass, he saw the shadow of an alien ship, and sleek, old, and scarred from battles long forgotten. A voice echoed from the pod's speaker, deep and metallic. "Human life sign detected. Prepare for retrieval." Before he could react, mechanical arms reached out and pulled the pod toward the ship. Eli's vision blurred as the hatch opened and figures surrounded him. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness again was a tall alien with glowing amber eyes looking down at him. The alien said softly, almost like a whisper, still breathing. After all that, then darkness claimed him. The cold silence of space faded, replaced by the hum of alien engines. The boy who had lost everything was alive, and soon, the galaxy would learn his name. The alien mentor when Eli woke again. He was not in the void. He felt warmth on his face, and a strange smell of metal and smoke filled the air. Slowly, he opened his eyes and saw a dim room full of humming lights. Strange tools floated in zero gravity, and walls were covered with old alien symbols. He tried to move, but a mechanical arm gently pressed him back on the bed. A deep voice spoke, calm yet powerful. Rest, little human, your body is damaged, but your spirit seems stubborn. Eli turned his head and saw the creature standing beside him. It was tall, covered in worn armor plates with 4 eyes that glowed amber like molten suns. Its face was rough, scarred, and ancient, but its gaze was not cruel. The alien leaned closer, its voice rumbling softly. You can call me Kale Rin, and you, I assume, are the survivor from the human freighter? Eli sat up despite the pain and said weakly, Where am I? Kale answered, On my ship, the Nomad's Forge, a place forgotten by both war and peace. Eli looked around, realizing the ship was old, patched with parts from a dozen species. Kale noticed his confusion and said, I was a war engineer once. Built machines that destroyed worlds. Now I build things that no one needs. Eli clenched his fists, the memories of his sister flashing in his mind. My family was taken by Vorak Dren, he whispered, his voice breaking. Kale's eyes narrowed. Vorak, the butcher of the Orion Belt, I know him too well. I built half the weapons he uses today. Eli's heart froze. Then help me destroy him, he demanded. Kale let out a harsh metallic laugh. You? A fragile human boy? You cannot even stand properly. Eli stood anyway, trembling. Then teach me. Make me strong enough. For a long moment, Kale stared at him, silent. He saw something dangerous in the boy's eyes. Not madness, but purpose. Finally, Kyle sighed. You humans never learn when to give up. He walked to a control panel and pressed a button, lighting up the ship's training bay. If you live through my lessons, maybe you'll be ready to die properly, he said, his tone cold but not unkind. Eli followed, limping but determined. The next days were pure torment. Kale trained him in low-gravity combat, forcing him to fight against machines twice his size. When Eli fell, Kale would say, Pain is only proof you are still alive. When Eli missed a shot, Kale shouted, Think like a machine, but fight like a human. Eli's hands bled. His muscles screamed, yet he never stopped. He refused to eat until he completed each challenge. Kyle watched quietly, pretending to be annoyed but secretly impressed. In spare moments, Kyle taught him about alien weapons and ship engines. He showed Eli how plasma flows, how energy shields bend light. Eli listened carefully, learning faster than Kale expected. He modified a damaged training drone and made it work again using human logic instead of alien code. Kale blinked. Impossible, I didn't think your species could understand this technology. Eli smiled faintly. Humans learn fast when they have no choice. As weeks passed, Kale began to respect the boy one night. While Eli was practicing alone, Kyle stood at the doorway watching. He muttered to himself, The galaxy made you fragile, but suffering made you unbreakable. When Eli collapsed after a long fight, Kale carried him to his bunk and covered him with an old thermal sheet. For the first time in years, Kale felt something like pride, a strange warmth inside his ancient chest. Later, while fixing an engine, Kale told Eli about his past. I served under Vorak once, built him weapons of death, until I saw him destroy a planet just to watch it burn. Eli's eyes hardened. Then you owe the galaxy a debt. Help me pay it. Kale nodded slowly. Maybe I do, human. Maybe I do. Days turned into months. Eli grew stronger, faster, more precise. He no longer fought like a boy, but like a soldier born in fire.
Kale began building something in secret, a small stealth fighter hidden in the hangar.
He called it the Reclaimer, a name that carried both hope and vengeance. Eli worked beside him, modifying it with human creativity, making it faster and more unpredictable. One evening, the ship's sensors beeped, a signal from deep space. Kale opened it and frowned. It's from the pirate network. Vorak Dren is raiding again, this time near the colony of Vesta 9. Eli froze, staring at the star map glowing red. That's close to where we are, he said quietly. We can reach it. Kyle shook his head. You're not ready. He will kill you before you even get close. Eli looked back at him, eyes burning with the same fire as before. He took my sister, my home, everything. I'm already dead if I do nothing. Kyle said nothing for a long time. Then he walked to a locker, pulled out a heavy plasma blade, and handed it to him. This was once mine, he said. Now it's yours. If you fall, make it a death worth remembering. Eli took it, gripping it tight. I don't plan on dying. Not until Vorak does. As the Reclaimer's engines roared to life for the first time, the lights of the forge reflected in Eli's determined eyes. Kale stood behind him, watching the boy he had saved become something extraordinary. In that silent moment, Kale knew the galaxy was about to change. Not because of an army, not because of a hero, but because one human boy refused to kneel before monsters. And as the ship launched into the stars, Kale whispered to himself, Go, human. Show them what your kind is made of. Forging the human spirit, days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Eli Grant was no longer the weak boy who had crawled out of the ruins of the Starlight Ember. Under Kale Rin's harsh guidance, he became something else. Something sharper, faster and stronger. Every scar on his skin told a story. Every drop of sweat carried purpose. The once frightened boy now moved through the ship like a soldier born from pain. Kale watched him during training. The way Eli swung the plasma blade. The way he calculated every strike. He saw a rhythm in the boy's movement. A strange harmony between fury and control. Too human to be machine. Too precise to be reckless, Kale murmured as he studied him. Eli had begun mastering zero-gravity combat, fighting against magnetic drones that attacked from all angles. Sometimes he lost, but every defeat only fueled him further. The ship's forge chamber became his second home. He learned to repair engines, build shields, and upgrade weapons. He studied alien schematics for hours without sleep. Turning complex blueprints into working systems, Kale was surprised. You learn faster than any apprentice I ever had, he said. Eli replied quietly. I'm not learning to live. I'm learning to fight. Inside the hangar, the Reclaimer slowly took shape, part alien technology, part human invention. Its design was unique, fast and sleek with sharp edges like wings of a predator. Kale handled the structure, but Eli's mind brought creativity. He installed hidden energy cores and new control systems using scrap human tech. The mix of human stubbornness and alien engineering created something no one had ever seen. Kale looked at the ship and whispered, This will fly faster than fear itself. But Eli's body was still fragile compared to the alien soldiers he might face. So Kale designed an armor suit for him. Light and flexible, it used adaptive nanotech that could adjust to movement and damage. When Eli put it on for the first time, the black surface shimmered like liquid shadow, Kale said. Now you look like the ghost that hunts nightmares, Eli replied. No, I look like a human who refuses to die, every night. After training, Eli stood before the stars and replayed the moment his sister was taken. He imagined Vorak's cruel eyes, and his promise echoed inside him. I'll make you remember me. Kale often watched from a distance, understanding the silence between grief and vengeance. One night, Kale approached him and said, You remind me of a soldier I once knew. He too lost everything and found meaning only in revenge. Eli looked at him. Did he win? Coyle shook his head. No, he became the monster he hunted. Eli lowered his gaze. Then I'll win differently. A few days later, the Reclaimer's engine test succeeded. The roar shook the hangar as bright blue plasma flared behind the ship. Eli smiled for the first time in months, feeling power vibrate through the deck. Kyle crossed his arms, pretending to be unimpressed. Don't celebrate yet, human. A ship is only as good as the one flying it. Eli grinned. Then it's already the best in the galaxy. Training now changed from survival to strategy. Kale taught him tactics used by alien fleets. How to predict movement. How to strike before the enemy even realizes. Eli used his creativity to twist those tactics into unpredictable human-style attacks. He said, You think in straight lines, Kale, but humans, we think in chaos. Kale laughed for the first time in years. A rough sound that echoed through the ship. Then chaos will be your greatest weapon one day. While checking the comms, Eli found an intercepted pirate transmission. The voice spoke in harsh alien language. Mentioning a convoy of slaves taken from the Orion Edge, Eli froze. Reading the coordinates, It matched the sector where his sister's pod had vanished. He ran to Kyle, his voice trembling. "They're there." "The ones Vorak captured," Kale frowned. "It could be a trap," Eli replied. "Then I'll walk into it." "Because she might be alive?" Kale stared at him for a long time, his eyes glowing softly. "You are not ready to face him." "Not yet." Eli clenched his fists. "If I wait, I might lose her forever." Kale finally nodded. "Then you'll need a symbol. Something the pirates will fear." He handed Eli a tattered piece of cloth with the symbol of Vorak's fleet. "Torn and burned. Make them remember this," he said. "But under your banner." Eli burned the cloth and carved his own mark. A single white star crossed by a blade, the mark of humanity's defiance. As the engines powered up, the entire ship vibrated. Kale stood near the window watching as the reclaimer slowly lifted off, its blue flames painting the hangar walls. "Eli Grant," Kale said softly. "You are no longer a survivor. You are a storm." Eli's voice came through the comms, calm but filled with unshakable resolve. "Then let the galaxy hear its thunder." When the reclaimer jumped into hyperspace, its light stretched across the stars. Somewhere far away in the darkness of space, Vorak Dren felt a strange chill crawl down his spine. He didn't know why, but for the first time in years, the ruthless pirate lord felt something new, a feeling that the ghost of a human was coming for him. The hunt begins. The stars stretched like silver rivers as the reclaimer sliced through hyperspace. Inside the cockpit, Eli sat in silence, his eyes locked on the glowing star map. Vorak's network spread like a spiderweb across the outer rim, and every line led to suffering. Kale's voice echoed in his ear through the comms. "Remember, Eli, the pirates feed on fear. Take away their fear and they crumble." Eli nodded, his hands tightening on the controls. "Then I'll make them afraid of a human." He began his hunt with the smaller gangs that worked under Vorak's command. The first target was a raider camp on a barren moon called Tarth 9. Their ships were old and scarred, orbiting above the dusty surface like vultures. Eli disabled their comms using an EMP blast, then descended in silence when the raiders saw the black ship land. They laughed, thinking it was scrap, but the laughter stopped when the shadows moved. Out of the darkness came Eli, his armor glowing faintly blue. Blade drawn, he moved like lightning, striking and vanishing. The pirates screamed as explosions tore through their base. In minutes, the camp was nothing but flames and silence. As dawn rose over the dead moon, Eli carved his mark into the ground, a white star crossed by a blade. The surviving pirates fled and whispered his name to others. By the next week, the outer rim was buzzing with stories of a ghost-like human destroying pirate dens. Some said he was a lost experiment. Others said he was death itself. No one knew the truth, and that made them fear him even more. Kale listened to the reports through intercepted channels. He smiled quietly. "You've become a myth, human." "But myths burn fast if they shine too bright," Eli replied. "Then I'll burn long enough for Vorak to see the flames." Weeks passed, and the raids grew larger. Eli struck convoy after convoy, freeing prisoners and dismantling weapon caches. He didn't keep the loot. He gave it to the colonies that had suffered. For the first time in years, humans on the rim began to believe again. They spoke of the Reclaimer, the human avenger who fought where no fleet dared to go. But with every victory, Vorak Dren's fury grew. He slammed his clawed fist on the command table as reports poured in. "Find him," Vorak roared. "Find this human ghost and bring me his heart." His lieutenants trembled, for even they had started to fear the whispers in the dark. One of them said, "My lord, the colonies call him the Reclaimer. He leaves no survivors." Vorak growled. "Then I'll reclaim his soul myself." Meanwhile, Eli infiltrated a major pirate outpost hidden inside a hollow asteroid. The base was heavily guarded, full of alien mercenaries. Kale's voice guided him through the corridors. "Left tunnel leads to the reactor, disable it, and the whole base will collapse." Eli moved swiftly, silent as a shadow. He planted plasma charges and rescued a group of captives locked in cages. One of them, an old human trader, grabbed his hand and whispered, "You're real. I thought you were just a story." Eli smiled faintly beneath his helmet. "Sometimes stories are all that's left." As the base exploded behind him, the Reclaimer soared through the debris field. Its engines burning blue, Kale said. "You've angered him now, Eli. Vorak will come for you," Eli answered coldly. "That's what I want." Soon, the bounty on his head reached 500,000 credits. Every hunter in the sector began searching for the mysterious human pilot. But they underestimated him. He outsmarted them all. Turning traps into ambushes, he captured pirate frequencies and sent false distress calls to lure them into dead zones. Each time he struck, he left behind that single mark, the star and the blade. One night, while checking intercepted signals, Kale froze. "Eli," he said, "there's a new transmission from Vorak's command ship." Eli leaned forward, his heart pounding. Kale translated, "He's offering a fake distress call, claiming he's carrying human captives from the Orion Belt." Eli's voice hardened. "He's baiting me," Kale warned. "It's a trap," Eli whispered. "Then let him think it works." The next day, the reclaimer followed the signal into a nebula filled with static lightning. Blue storms crackled across the gas clouds, hiding ships like ghosts in fog. Sensors flickered and died, and the comms went silent. Kale's voice broke through for one last moment. "Eli, if this goes wrong..." Eli cut him off. "Then I'll finish it anyway." As the ship entered the heart of the storm, shapes began to emerge. Dark outlines of massive cruisers surrounded him. Dozens of them, Vorak's fleet, waiting, their cannons aimed at one small human fighter. Eli grinned beneath his helmet, the same calm fire burning in his eyes. "All right, Vorak," he said softly. "Let's see if the galaxy still fears you." Lightning flashed across the nebula, revealing the human ship alone among giants. But inside that small vessel was the spirit of 1,000 battles. The pirates didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the hunter became the hunted, and the legend of the reclaimer was only beginning to echo across the stars. The trap and the revelation. The storm around the nebula howled like an angry sea. Electric blue lightning flashed across clouds of dust and gas. In the middle of that storm, the reclaimer floated in silence. Eli's hands were steady on the controls, though his heart beat like a war drum. The pirate ships surrounded him from every side, their cannons glowing red. 1,000 eyes stared through scanners, waiting for Vorak's command. "Target locked," came a voice through the pirate fleet's comms. Vorak Dren leaned back in his massive throne seat aboard the Iron Maul, his mouth twisted in a cruel smile. "Bring me the human alive." His officers obeyed, unaware that the human they hunted was already inside their trap by choice. Eli's voice echoed through the comms, calm and sharp. "You took everything from me, Vorak. Now I'm here to take it back." The pirates laughed. "One ship against 30? You'll die before you blink." But Eli pressed a button and the entire nebula lit up with false energy readings. Kale's earlier programming had turned the storm itself into a weapon. Static lightning arced from cloud to cloud, striking pirate hulls and frying their sensors. Confusion broke out, ships collided, and the battlefield turned into chaos. Eli dived through the chaos like a hawk through smoke. His ship rolled and twisted, dodging plasma beams that tore past him. He launched drones disguised as debris, each one carrying explosive cores. They attached to enemy ships like metal insects, then burst into blue fire. Vorak's officers panicked, shouting, "He's everywhere, the human is everywhere." But the victory was short-lived. A hidden magnetic pulse from Vorak's flagship hit the reclaimer. Every system on Eli's ship went dark. The lights dimmed, engines died, and the black of space swallowed everything. Alarms wailed as the ship was caught by a tractor beam and dragged toward the Iron Maul. Eli tried to reboot the controls, but the circuit sparked uselessly. He whispered under his breath, "Looks like this is the part where legends bleed." When the doors opened, blinding light filled the hangar bay. Dozens of pirates surrounded him, weapons raised. Eli stepped out. Armor cracked, blade in hand, his face hidden under the helmet. Vorak stood at the far end, massive and monstrous. His armor glowed red, and his claws gleamed like knives. "So," Vorak growled, "this is the little human who thinks he can hunt me." Eli raised his head and said softly, "I don't think I know." Vorak's laughter shook the walls. "You are brave. I'll give you that." He stepped closer, towering over Eli. "But bravery dies with foolishness," Eli whispered. "Then let's see who dies first." Before anyone could move, the hangar lights flickered, and an unfamiliar voice echoed, "Enough, Vorak." Everyone turned. From the upper deck, Kale Rin stepped forward, his armor glinting silver. Vorak froze for a moment, his expression darkening. "Well, the ghost engineer returns," Vorak snarled. "My greatest creation, and my greatest traitor." Eli's eyes widened behind his visor. "Kale, you worked for him?" Kale's voice was low and heavy. "I built his empire, Eli, and now I'm here to end it." Vorak laughed bitterly. "You think you can wash away your sins by saving a human boy?" Kale replied, "No, I'll wash them away by destroying the monster I helped build." At his words, the walls came alive with movement. Kale's hidden drones burst from the vents. Tiny metal machines swarmed the hangar, disabling weapons and jamming comms. Eli grabbed his blade and charged. Kale shouted, "Go for the core! End this madness!" The battle erupted in blinding light. Pirates fired wildly as explosions tore through the hangar. Eli and Kale fought side by side, alien technology and human courage working as one. Eli's blade sliced through armor. Kale's plasma cannon burned through walls. They moved like storm and thunder, a perfect balance of fire and fury. But Vorak was not so easily defeated. He smashed through his own soldiers to reach them, roaring in rage. He struck Kale with a backhand blow that sent the old alien crashing into the wall. Kale fell, sparks flickering across his damaged armor. Eli screamed and lunged at Vorak. Their blades clashed, plasma against steel, light against darkness. Vorak's strength was monstrous, each strike sending shockwaves through the floor. Eli was smaller, faster, driven by fury. Their fight raged. Across the hangar until both were covered in burns and blood, Kale, half-conscious, whispered into the comm, "Eli, remember your training. Think like a human, not a soldier." Eli gritted his teeth, blocking another strike. Then he looked up at the ceiling, at the exposed magnetic core that powered the tractor beam. He leaped backward, threw his plasma blade into the core and fired his blaster. The explosion ripped through the hangar, collapsing the upper deck. Vorak roared as flames surrounded him. Eli grabbed Kale and pulled him toward a maintenance corridor. They ran as fire and metal fell around them. When they reached the airlock, Kale stumbled, his voice weak. "You have to go, Eli. Finish this. He's still alive, but not for long." Eli shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." Kale smiled faintly. "I was born in war. But you were born for something greater." He pushed Eli into the escape pod and slammed the button. As the hatch sealed, Kale's final words echoed through the static. "Show the galaxy what a human heart can do." The pod launched just as the iron maul exploded behind it. The fireball bloomed across the nebula, painting the stars with gold and crimson. Eli watched the flames fade into the darkness, whispering, "I'll finish it, Kyle. I promise." But deep in the wreckage, unseen, a shadow moved. Vorak's damaged hand twitched, his burning eyes still open. The pirate lord was not dead, not yet, and as Eli's pod drifted away, the galaxy prepared for the final storm. The fall of the pirate lord. The stars burned faintly above the shattered remains of the iron maul. Pieces of twisted metal drifted through the void like dying embers. Eli's escape pod floated silently, the wreckage glowing behind him. He watched the fire fade and whispered, "It's over." But in his heart, he knew it wasn't. Days passed as he drifted alone, surviving on emergency supplies. Kale's final words echoed in his mind. Show the galaxy what a human heart can do. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kale falling, the flames swallowing everything. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't stop thinking about Vorak. Something inside told him the monster wasn't gone yet. And he was right. Far beneath the debris of the iron maul, something still lived. A pulse of red light blinked inside a broken engine core. Vorak Dren clawed his way from the wreck. Half of his armor melted into his flesh. His eyes burned brighter than ever, filled with hatred. He growled, "You think you can kill me, human? You will learn what eternity means." He sent a coded signal through subspace, calling every surviving pirate ship to his location. Within hours, a new fleet began to form around the wreckage. The warlord had risen again. Meanwhile, Eli's pod was rescued by a group of scavengers who had heard his signal. They were humans, miners from the asteroid belt. When they recognized him, their faces filled with awe. "You're the Reclaimer, the ghost who hunts pirates," one whispered. Eli simply nodded. "I need a ship." The scavengers showed him their old freighter, battered but functional. He spent the next days rebuilding it into something new. Stronger engines, thicker armor, and Kale's old AI core transferred from his broken helmet. The AI's voice was calm and familiar. "You sound tired, Eli." He smiled faintly. "You sound alive, Kale." As the ship roared to life, Eli knew what he had to do. He traced Vorak's signal. Deep inside the remains of a dying star, the pirate lord had made his new fortress there, feeding on the radiation of the star's heart. It was suicide to go in alone, but Eli didn't care. "This ends tonight," he said quietly. He launched into hyperspace, the stars streaking past him like fireflies. When he arrived, the scene was terrifying. Vorak's new flagship, the Black Maw, hovered over the dying sun around it. Hundreds of smaller ships circled like predators, Eli whispered. "Just like before, but this time it's my trap." He opened Kale's AI interface. "Arm the photon mines," Kale's voice replied. "You're outnumbered 100 to 1, Eli grinned. "Then they'll have a better story to tell." He dived straight into the fleet. Weaving through enemy fire like a storm, his ship spun and rolled, releasing mines that detonated in waves of blue light. Pirate ships burst into flames one by one. But still they kept coming. Missiles struck his hull. Sparks flew, alarms screamed. The AI warned. "Shields at 20%, Eli shouted. "Doesn't matter. Just get me to the flagship." When he reached the Black Maw, he rammed straight through its outer bay. Metal screamed as his ship tore through the hull, crashing into the command deck. The blast threw him from the seat. His armor cracked but still functional. He stood up amid smoke and fire. Gripping Kale's plasma blade, pirates rushed in, but he cut through them like a storm through glass. Every strike burned with purpose. Every swing carried Kale's lessons. He fought his way through corridors glowing red with alarms. At the end of the hall, massive doors opened, revealing Vorak Dren alive and waiting. The alien warlord was half machine now, his right arm replaced by a plasma cannon, his body fused with metal plates. He looked monstrous, more machine than flesh. "I told you, human," Vorak said, his voice echoing like thunder. "I am eternal." Eli raised his blade. "Then eternity ends tonight." They clashed in the burning heart of the ship. Plasma met steel, fire met fury. Vorak struck with the strength of a god. But Eli dodged and countered with human instinct. Each blow shook the deck, each roar shook the air. Vorak grabbed Eli and threw him across the room, slamming him into a wall. "You are nothing," he bellowed. "Just a weak creature pretending to be a warrior." Eli coughed blood and laughed. "Then why are you bleeding from a human's blade?" Vorak roared and charged. Eli triggered the suit's magnet boosters, sliding beneath him and stabbing the plasma blade into his core. The weapon hissed and burned through armor. Vorak screamed, grabbing Eli's throat. But Eli pressed the activation switch, a small energy cell Kyle had built long ago. He whispered, "For Lila, for Kale, for every soul you destroyed." He slammed his fist into the blade. The core exploded. Fire erupted through the command deck, consuming everything. Eli stumbled through the collapsing ship, flames chasing his every step. He reached the escape bay and launched just as the Black Maw began to sink into the dying sun. The explosion lit the void brighter than daylight. Vorak's scream echoed one last time before silence returned. Eli watched the light fade, whispering, "It's done." The AI spoke softly. "Kale would have been proud," Eli replied. "He still is." The ship drifted through the golden light of the dying star. The pirate empire was gone, the galaxy free, and the name Eli Grant became a legend whispered from one world to another. A human who faced monsters and taught the galaxy that courage doesn't need power, only heart. Legacy of the human boy. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in many years. No pirate signals, no distress calls, no war fleets burning through the stars. Only silence. the kind that follows when legends have finished their work. Eli Grant sat in the cockpit of his ship, the armor now old and scratched. He looked out at the distant worlds glowing like candles across the dark, each one free because of a choice he made, a fight he refused to abandon. Kale's voice still lived inside the ship's AI, faint but steady. "Do you hear that, Eli?" "That's the sound of peace," Eli smiled weakly. Never thought it'd be so quiet. He traveled alone now, helping small colonies rebuild. He fixed broken satellites, brought food to forgotten stations. He never stayed long, never told them his name. But whenever someone asked who he was, children whispered, "He's the Reclaimer," a myth walking among mortals. A human who once faced the darkness and won. Across the galaxy, the stories spread. Aliens told their young about the boy who fought monsters among the stars. On planets that once feared humans, statues of Eli Grant began to rise. They carved his symbol, the white star crossed by a blade, on spaceports. Helmets and flags, to many it became a promise that no matter how cruel the universe could be, the human heart would always rise again. One evening, as he floated near the edge of an uncharted system, the radar beeped. A small distress signal blinked from a nearby moon. Eli hesitated, remembering how his own story had begun the same way. He sighed. "All right then, one more rescue." He guided the ship down through silver clouds and landed near a burning wreck. When the hatch opened, the air was filled with dust and ash. A group of colonists waved for help. Eli handed out supplies and pulled survivors from the wreckage, but among them was one who made him freeze. A young woman with dark hair and soft eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. She stared at him, trembling. "Eli?" He dropped the medpack in shock, his voice breaking. "Lila?" For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she ran forward and hugged him. He held her like he would never let go again. She whispered through tears, "I thought you were dead." Eli smiled, his voice trembling. "So did I." As they sat by the wreckage, the setting sun painted the horizon gold. Lila told him her story, how her pod had been found by traders, how she had lived among distant colonies searching for her brother, and how every world she visited spoke of a nameless hero flying a black ship. "When I heard your symbol, I knew it had to be you," she said softly. Eli looked at the sky, his eyes glistening. Kale would have liked this ending. The AI's voice chimed gently. "I do like it, Eli," Lila gasped. "Who's that?" Eli laughed. "An old friend who never stopped watching over me." That night, they lit a small beacon on the moon's surface. Not a distress signal, but a message of hope. Its light pulsed softly. A white star crossed by a blade. Ships passing nearby saw it and recorded the coordinates. Soon the symbol became known as the beacon of the human heart, a place where peace began and war ended years later. Stories of Eli Grant still traveled faster than light. Some said he became a guardian of the rim worlds. Others claimed he vanished into the stars with his sister. No one truly knew. But whenever someone looked up at the night sky, they could sometimes see a faint blue streak moving between the constellations. And old spacers would whisper, "That's the Reclaimer still watching, still protecting," because legends never die. They just turn into stars that guide others. And in the quiet heartbeat of the universe, one name still echoed through the void: Eli Grant, the human boy who faced a pirate lord and taught the galaxy what courage truly means.